And good afternoon and welcome. My name is Ryan Belmore. I am the owner and publisher of What's Up Newp, and we are continuing our conversations with the candidates, and we are wrapping up Newport City Council members, and we have one right now, one this afternoon at 5 p.m., and one tomorrow at 11 a.m., and Frank, we're making it, man.
We are. We're getting through this. And then we get to do all the others.
And we will turn our minds and direction towards some other races. But it has been really fun, believe it or not, getting to know all these candidates and hearing about what they stand for and what they're running for.
And lots of differences. I was thinking about that in the last hour or so, how we have so many different approaches to the same kind of problems. And there are, to people out there are real differences. There are some people who support the school bond, and there are those who don't. There are people who believe that there is systemic racism in Newport that needs to be addressed. There are some who don't, and so I think it's when you look down the issues, there are lots of differences, and you have an opportunity to learn those through these videos and through our profile. So
yes, and if you head to our website, you can catch the campaign announcements, the original campaign announcements, candidate profiles, responses to Alliance for Livable Newport surveys, and more. Big reason we're doing this right now is September 8th, there is a primary for the at-large seat, and there are 12 candidates running for at-large. And I got a report here from Board of Elections a little while ago, and I don't know what to think about this number, but over 1,500 Rhode Islanders have already voted in person in the September 8th primary.
Interesting. So those are obviously, are they talking Newport? Or are they talking
in the state, in person at the City Hall, Town Hall?
Yeah. So I don't know if all cities and towns have early voting, but that's encouraging. People don't want to get caught up in the crowds, and I would assume when we get to the general election, that number will be much larger.
Yes, and it says visit your city town hall Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. until September 8th to vote in person. Of course, you could also show up on September 8th and vote. But without further ado, which is why we're doing this now, because people are already making their decisions. Hopefully, everybody's an informed voter, whether they're doing it by a mail ballot, doing it early at their local city town hall, or doing it on September 8th. One of the 12 candidates running on September 8th to make it to the November 3rd is Olga Enger. And let's see, Olga, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Perfect. Hello. Welcome.
Hi, Olga.
Thank you.
And well, I guess we're going to get to an explanation of your backgrounds and where you are as we kick off the first question here with tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about everything people should know about you.
Right. Okay. So my name is Olga Enger. I am running for Newport City Council at-Large. A lot of people here in Newport know me already because I was a reporter for 10 years. Way back 10 years ago, I was the editor for Newport Patch, Middletown Patch, and then I went on as a staff reporter for Newport This Week. I freelanced for them for years. And the last 3 years, I have owned Studio Newport, which is a photography studio located downtown Newport.
Excellent. And give us a reason why you got into this, why you're running for an at-large seat on Newport City Council.
Right. So I was, when you say this, I've always been into this. I have sat in the council chambers for years, and I have listened to the same problems that we are facing for years. And as a reporter, you don't speak up. For one example is revenue. There are so many opportunities for revenue in this city. When I didn't know everything. I didn't have all the answers, but what I did know is that there were ideas that weren't being discussed over and over and over again, year after year. And so I started keeping a journal, hey, this revenue opportunity. And sometimes I would bring this up in interviews, and I got a lot of excuses. And I understand as a mom, as a business owner, you get kind of into your routine. But I think out of the box thinking, that's what the city needs now more than ever. So I have the background, I know the issues, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories, hundreds of hours of interviews. I have I'm a business owner. I feel the pain for business owners. I'm a mom. I feel the pain for moms. I'm a homeowner, and I feel the pain for homeowners. So that'll be part of the solution.
You know, I wanted to jump on just one thing. I was hoping for a follow-up. You mentioned opportunities for revenue. Give us some examples.
Right. So the one thing I'll always say is I don't pretend to have all the answers. And that's, as a reporter, I've quoted a lot of people who have these half-baked solutions. So I want to be careful of that because there's no silver bullet. But for one example is the moorings. Maybe not tomorrow, but there's a lot of moorings out there. People want to come to Newport. Can we increase the price? Can we rent out other moorings to boaters? My guess is probably. I think that we are dependent on parking tickets in this city as a revenue. And so we are, in a way, dependent on the problem of parking. As a business owner, parking is a huge sore spot. I live downtown Newport. I don't have a driveway. Parking is a sore spot. So let's not become dependent on a problem that we have. So move away from that, look at moorings, but we could maybe explore as a resident who does not have a driveway. I would consider a parking sticker, a fee for a parking sticker, like most big cities. Again, we could look through the budget and look at basically any department, any little line item, and where we see problems, I think that there's revenue opportunities. This is a rabbit hole. I could go on and on. We have people coming to Newport. We have these big festivals, obviously not this year because of COVID. We have Folk Festival. We have the Jazz Festival. I asked this question when I was a cub reporter, and I said, well, why don't we put on something like this? This is great. People love to come to Newport. And I was accosted. I was told, there's no silver bullet. That's not what the city does. But why not? I think we need to think outside of the box.
Excellent. And,
Okay.
You brought it up already a couple times, and it usually does come up right off the top here. And we are living through COVID-19, and it's a pandemic. And, some of your thoughts on the COVID-19 pandemic, what the city should be doing, what the city has done well, what opportunities you think the city has, and what, if anything, the city should be doing more to enforce restrictions.
Right. So COVID-19, I think Newport's doing an amazing job. I have to commend. I do have sore spots with the current council. COVID-19 is not one of them. I think they've done a great job, and they're leaders in this community. It's not easy for our community to go from a very small town to 100,000 people plus. With that said, I also, as a business owner, it's tough. My studio was shuttered. I'm a single mom. That was tough. And so when nobody hears people more, when businesses say, like, this is hurting us, I think that businesses are, for the most part, compliant, but we need to start thinking in the future. Like, we're thinking masks, which is great, but let's think, okay, what happens where every day we hear about businesses that are closing their doors for good? I'm fortunate, I'm thriving. Not every business can say the same. And so we need to keep our businesses afloat and think, again, outside of the box for what we can do to support these businesses that have. Last year, it was the gas outage for a week, and now it's COVID-19. If Newport small business, that's the backbone of Newport. Our small businesses are family-owned businesses. So we really need to think toward next summer, 2 years from now, and really support and enable our businesses. It could be as simple as, let's shop local. There's not enough of that. There's not enough of, the city needs to shop local themselves. When we design a website, we should be looking at local web designers first. So supporting business, continuing, they've done a great job. They're enforcing the masks. They're handing out masks. Lynn and Susan have been doing a good job of that. So, and our numbers show it. So kudos to them.
So lots of businesses have been hurt economically. Individuals have been hurt economically. How can the city help those people who have been some of them devastated through this pandemic? How can they help economically? What can the city do?
Right. So one thing is lead by example. Again, shop local. If you talk to the post office, Amazon packages are up record highs. So campaigns go a long ways. Social media campaigns, highlighting different businesses. Sometimes it's as simple as just sharing a post and getting the word out there. Media's, you guys could partner with other medias and do for the Shop Local campaign, highlighting other businesses, business owners. I do headshots and branding. If every time someone goes to Providence or to Boston for a headshot, that's business loss for me. That's a meal out with my son that I'm not taking, and then that meal out I'm not tipping. So we have to keep the money local. Advocating, the city could, just like in the gas outage, the city needs to do a good job of advocating for small business with our state delegates. Do whatever we can to get the money down here to our small business owners and families.
Help me out a little bit, and I understand the shop local, and I understand advocating for small business, but advocating for what for small business?
Well, grants for one, money for one would be great. There's different types of businesses down here, so we can keep them afloat. There's businesses that are struggling. Let's get them. This is a seasonal. We have a seasonal city here. Let's keep them afloat until the next season. Again, I've been very fortunate. I took proactive steps, but there are businesses that are living month to month right now, and we're at the end of the summer, and if we can keep them afloat till next summer, that would be in our best interest.
Go ahead, Frank.
No, go on.
Oh, okay, I will. We're going to fight over this one. Well, it goes right in hand with that. You mentioned that Newport is a seasonal destination, seasonal place to live. Does Newport rely too heavily on the tourism and hospitality industry? In your thoughts, what alternative industries should the city be looking to develop, if any?
Of course it does. My business is a destination business. I'm not a t-shirt shop, so I have to sell Newport, and that's a tough sell, to be honest. And it sounds funny, but I have to convince people that my product is good enough to go across the bridge. I have to convince people that my product is good enough to fight traffic and parking. So it's an upward battle. I love Newport. I live here. My son's friends are here, so I stayed. But to attract people, the one thing we need to do is get commercial space. Commercial space is extremely expensive and difficult to find here in Newport. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. Innovate Newport was intended to be an incubator for small business to foster new emerging businesses. I'm a little disappointed that it's turned into the city playing landlord. The city has picked favorites. I don't see any rhyme or reason. I don't see too much innovation there. So I think we have the building. It's beautiful. As those leases expire, I think we should go back to the drawing board and look at creating an incubation, get experts down here. I'm not an expert in incubators, but we could get to find those industries like it was intended. Initially it was intended to be the marine industry. If that didn't work, let's redefine a different industry that we want to attract to Newport and give them that commercial space. And then as they maybe grow, we can have them go out to more of the private sector. However we do it, whether it's incentives with commercial landlords, we need to fix the commercial space issue. I spent 3 years, this is a brand new studio for me. I was in a kind of a temporary studio. I spent 3 years looking for a great studio. I'm now on Marlborough Street. I just had to spend $7,000 just taking down walls to get when I was a brand new business owner, that wasn't possible. So to open a business or open a photography studio, you shouldn't have to spend $7,000 to take down a few walls. We should have the space to attract business.
What would you do with the Shepherd building?
Well, there's a lot of things we could do. I'm partial to, I think that Newport I would love to see an artist loft. I'm an artist. I see how you can monetize art. With my photo studio, we could have, and this is just an idea, there's a lot we could do with it, but in order to, when you talk about diversifying the economy, we could get galleries, we could get like a little cafe, attract some real impressive emerging artists to Newport. That will bring in different types of families. That will bring a different type of visitor to Newport. A lot of the small business owners that do depend on tourism will often tell you that the caliber of visitors to this town isn't the same level as maybe in Nantucket. So that will bring in different types of visitors to this town that will spend money, circulate more money into our economy. So, but I could see a lot of different uses for that, and I would support a lot of different uses.
Yeah, it's so much to explore there, but I think we want to stick within our framework a little bit and maybe come back to that. I'm curious about that the differentiation between visitors to Nantucket and visitors to Newport, but I don't want to explore that yet, because that may be, frankly, a matter of it being an island versus actually being an island also, but not quite the same. I want to go to climate change, and I want to ask you what your take is on climate change. Is it a concern, and what should the city do about it in order to improve the situation?
Sure. So is it a concern? Of course it's a concern. There's not a scientist on this planet that doesn't say it's a concern. So yes, it's absolutely a concern. And will it impact Newport? Of course. So my first response to this question is always, just like COVID, follow the guidance of state, federal, and international experts. Don't shine that on. We always say we don't have enough money. We'll find the money. We have to find the money. We can't push that problem down to the future because it's obviously going to be a problem. Sea level rise is obviously the concern that comes to everybody's mind when we talk about Newport. And there's projects that can be done. But in a nutshell, just like COVID, we have to listen to the experts and we have to take action when action is requested of us.
Have you thought about any things that the city can do, or any people or organizations with which the city can partner?
Well, in terms of, you mean partner for money or partner for?
Not necessarily, but University of Rhode Island, for instance. There are different organizations that are involved in this issue. I'm wondering whether or not you see the prospects of the city of Newport being able to partner with any of these to develop maybe an overall plan for climate change.
Sure, and the University of Rhode Island has done that. They've published studies on the sea level rise to quantify the impact to Newport. And of course, this also comes down to, I think we can make a difference. Can Newport change the international devastating impacts of climate change? Probably not, but we can start with clean streets, clean parks. Clean ocean access has done a lot with the skimmers in the past to try to keep our waters clean. That was all impact climate change, according to the experts. And maybe we can't change it tomorrow, but as a mother, we can teach our children, again, going back to education and campaigns. Clean streets and parks is a big thing for me. And as a candidate, and also as a mother, when I go to the parks with my son, we always are cleaning up because I'm teaching him that if you want a brighter future, you have to take action. So I think that all plays into climate change and our general environment here, local environment in Newport.
Olga, do you want to take a moment to talk about how you've been campaigning through your cleanups?
Right. So during COVID, I did not feel it was appropriate to ring doorbells. We have a lot of elderly in this community. And so I wanted to figure out ways that I could do two things. One, meet people if they wanted to meet me in person. And two, my other complaints with campaigning is I, as a mother, could never or very seldom go to these events, these fundraisers that were often held at bars. And so I wanted to create something that children could come to. So I have been scheduling these park cleanups where we first did at Sonoma Park in the North End, and kids came and adults came and we cleaned up the parks, and the city was great. They brought a bunch of receptacles and they actually did some cleanup before we even got there. So it got just the act of holding these has impacted positive change. And our next park cleanup is this Thursday in Morton Park at 4:30. You can find more details about that at Olga for Council on Facebook page. So
how do these events actually, what does it look like? Do you do campaigning there, or is it just putting people to work?
Well, a little bit of both, right? So I provide the bags and the gloves, and as we clean up, it's a very organic process. You can meet my child, you can meet my friends. And so some people come and they want to chit chat. Some people want to come and clean and chit chat. It's just a very organic way, similar to a lot of the fundraisers here in Newport, a way that people can, in a very friendly, in a very COVID-friendly and family-friendly way, get to know me and do something good.
Olga, one of the biggest projects coming up, and there are certainly plenty of them. You have the Pell Bridge ramp realignment. You have Carpianato. You have the North End. You have schools. You mentioned me at Sonoma Park, so just staying there in the North End for a minute. What would you like to see happen in the North End that best benefits everybody in the entire community?
Right. That's a great question. And just like the question with the Sheffield property, there's a lot of answers that I would support. But the two things that I would dig my heels in and be firm about is keeping open space. Once you develop, you can't go back, right? Once you've laid down in the cement, you don't go back green, very, very rarely. So that's a special part of Newport. I am in Sonoma Park several times a week. I love that playground. I love the trails. It's a great area for the residents. So keeping the open space, just doing things deliberately, slowly. There's a lot of talk about economic development. We've got this area, let's develop it. Let's bring in jobs, which is great, but let's not get overzealous and then ruin that area of town. Let's keep that open as much as we can. Also, too, there's not enough to do in Newport for families. We don't have a community pool. Most communities have things to do. I'm a strong supporter, have been for a long time, of the proposed skate park. I have a son. I think that in the past, we talked to local kids, boys and girls, that changed their youth. I think that would give a positive place for kids to go and congregate, whether it's the skate park and or other activities for children. Those are huge. That's where our children are for the most part. So let's make sure that they're represented.
Let me jump to another issue that, Ryan, did you have another one up on the?
No, I accidentally clicked the first question. Okay. It's up to you.
Okay, so I wanted to move to an issue that's in the forefront of everything, which is racism, and whether or not you see a systemic racism within the city of Newport, and if so, how would you address that?
Right. So systemic racism is a term that has been used a lot lately in the last several months. And so, but I can talk about bias, and I can talk about my perspective on racism in Newport, which needs to be addressed. And that's my long answer short. So anyone who knows me knows this has been something that's very important to me for a long time. In 2016, I was the only reporter to cover these topics, these town hall topics on racism. And I was raised, my mother grew up overseas, so she raised me to be very aware of bias because she was often the minority. Even with that perspective, I walked into these meetings, and as I covered these meetings of mothers talking about their Black children and what they were experiencing from subtle to very overt racism, opened my eyes and broke my heart. It was at that point, I think, that I truly realized that there's two things. One, what white privilege really meant. These mothers had concerns about their kids, just like I did, but they had concerns that I will never have to worry about. As a white mother of a white child, I don't need to worry about those things. And that's when my eyes opened what white privilege really means. And I've had conversations with my white mother friends about this for years. So that started a lot. That started a lot for me in terms of taking action, because I realized that in order to combat racism here in Newport, it comes down to me, to white mom, teaching our children. So then I went on to organize a Black History Festival at Emmanuel Church. It was this huge event. We got hundreds of kids. We partnered with the Boys and Girls Club. We got African drummers. So my intention for that was to help my son and his peers celebrate with kids from all over the neighborhood, not only acknowledge slavery as Black history here in Newport, but to celebrate African heritage. And I think that's an important, we celebrate as white people all over Newport, we celebrate our heroes. And I think that Black children and white children should do the same. And then many people also know me for my recent photography documentation of the George Floyd protests and riots in Minneapolis. I was in the heat of all that for days. And if anyone's interested in seeing those pictures and coverage, that's on my personal page, public Olga Enger. So to answer, that's the long story. So, but to answer your question, racism is a problem. Is it systemic? I don't really know what that means, but we need to, however we do it as counselors, can we sign an ordinance? Can we sign a resolution and fix racism? No. And that's the danger, I think, is that because it's trending now. 2 years ago, people were not interested in listening to me talk about this. Now everyone's very interested. So we need to keep this conversation going. It's not a simple resolution. Keep the conversation going locally. Whatever we can do as counselors to keep that going is important. Celebrating Black leaders, celebrating celebrating families. I can think of, like, for my photo studio, why don't we get kids in when they could take pictures of their grandparents, and we could put the pictures up in the library, or whatever it is. We need to keep that conversation going is the most important takeaway from that. And that's how we're going to combat racism.
Right.
The big question is the school bond question. And for those who are tuning in, this may be your first video. On November 3rd, Newport voters are going to be voting on a bonds that would add an addition at Pell School as well as replace Rogers High School. So wondering where you fall on the school bond question, and in support of the school bond. And, if the bond fails, what do you think the city should do to address school building needs?
Right. So I absolutely support the school bonds for many reasons. One, the kids need a new school. We have a once in a lifetime opportunity with the state funds being offered, for the grants offered. It's going to cost $72 million to fix that school, which has rats and mold in it. And any parent that I know is not going to send their child to it. So if we want to keep people in Newport, we need to give them a school. And I'm running because I believe people want a brighter future. So I'm a little confused when people say they don't support the bond, to be honest, because, and I know I've had people say that they're not going to vote for me, and that's okay, because I believe that we need a school. The discussions about regionalization didn't work. I've written editorial after editorial on this topic, begging officials in Portsmouth and Middletown to come to the table. It didn't work. So we need to give kids a school. So it's $72 million to repair the school. It's going to be about $50 million to build a school and expand Pell. So if anyone asks me if I support that bond, it's cheaper for me as a homeowner. It's not going to be a huge impact on my tax base, and my kid will get to go to a school here in Newport. So yes, of course I support that bond.
Olga, and I hope you don't mind me asking, how old is your son?
He's 6, of course not.
So yeah, probably a little too young to hear the school talk and to have an opinion or to ask questions yet, huh?
Right.
Yeah. I was just trying to wonder, like, what school age children are thinking when they hear all this talk about the schools and when they hear about the bonds. And I guess it would benefit him at Pell Elementary School, but that's a little bit down the line. Just trying to get different opinions on, what kids are talking about.
Well, I can answer that. It's kids hear adults. I have family. One of the reasons I decided to run is when my son went into kindergarten, every single one of his friends left. Let me tell you, a big reason was because of this looming unanswered problem about Rogers. When you see pictures of rats and mold, what parent's going to want that future for their children? So if we want to retain kids, and if you think that kids are nervous about our schools at as young as 5 and 6 years old, yes, of course they are, and people are leaving. So if we want a brighter future, we need to fix this school problem. It's never ideal. No one wants to spend money. I'm a business owner. I never want to spend money, but I wouldn't be here at where I am as a business owner if I shied away from spending money to make that ship go faster.
What do you say to those people who when they take a look beyond this, say, let the bond fail. We'll go back to Middletown and to Portsmouth, and we'll negotiate a merger. What do you say to those people?
Well, so you mean in terms of candidates or just residents?
No, anybody who takes that position that, in fact, what we ought to do is not pass this bond and Middletown will talk to us, and Portsmouth will talk to us, and we'll be able to talk and create some kind of a merged school system on the island.
Right. So what that really means, that's a really good thing for people to say. But what that really means is that, hey, in the interim, until we get Middletown and Portsmouth, who have repeatedly say they're not interested, our kids, our Newport kids, are going to be pawned off to other districts. We're not going to have a high school because that high school has been deemed unsafe. And anybody who's been to that high school and seen the pictures and talked to any of the teachers, talked to the administration, knows it's unsafe. So what that really means, if anyone's been paying attention, we have been talking about regionalization for the 10 years I've been reporting on that. We have not gained traction. So what that really means is let's pawn the kids off. Nobody wants to say it, but let's pawn the kids off to other districts. And that is not something I would support.
Actually, one of the candidates has said that, but
right, yeah,
okay.
I know, and that's really unfortunate because again, I am running for a greater that is not that thing, and that's really unfortunate because that candidate's kid is not going to be in the school district.
Olga, I wonder, I'm going to ask this question. I think it might be in order or out of order, but one of the questions we ask is, how do you make Newport a more attractive and affordable place to live? And I've been adding families onto this. How do you make it more attractive and affordable place to live for families? Obviously, we can all agree that Newport is attractive and beautiful. And but now I'm going to add a third one onto your question here is, do you think a new school solves a lot of those attractive and affordable issues?
Of course it does. Of course it does. Any community that attracts families, the first thing that people look at is the schools. When people buy a home, even if they don't have children yet, they look at the school district. My first home I bought was in East Greenwich. This was way before I was thinking about having a child. It was about 15 years ago. I was new to Rhode Island. The first question I asked was, what are the schools like? Of course, they're great. And that's why I bought the house. And the reason everybody knows is because that retains property values because people stay. People want to buy where there's good schools. So it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous for this not to be a number one priority. And it blows my mind every single time I hear someone. Anybody who says they do not support the bonds, they haven't been paying attention. It's too easy to say regionalization because that's for 10 years. That's gone nowhere.
Yeah, and just an aside, there are no guarantees that this incentive money is going to survive much beyond this year. Once the money is gone, the legislature is going to have to vote once again to be able to do that, and certainly the state is not in a good economic place.
No, there's been so much advocacy, not only from Newport, but from other school districts across the bridge, that these infrastructure needs need to be dealt with. This is not just a random act. This is years and years of lobbying the state. And now it's come that the state has said, okay, we have these funds available. And for Newport to walk away, can you imagine my business to say, hey, we will grow your business. We will give you 50 to 60 to 70% of the cost of the capital improvement costs. There's not a successful business alive that would turn that money down.
Olga, I wonder, going with the families and affordable, we build this new school. How do we get families able to buy a house here? What can we do to make more low-income housing, affordable housing, and houses that families can own and live in for this new school? Right.
So you tossed around a couple terms. There's a difference between, of course, affordable housing and low-income housing. So in terms of affordable housing, I mean, that is the market, but there's a lot that makes this town very expensive, including one, our broadband. Our broadband is terrible. So we need to, and this is something, again, that I reported on years ago, and then it's kind of fallen off of a priority list for the council, but that needs to be dealt with. I would support, there's no reason that this city cannot get free public internet. Right there, that's a tax break. If we can it's a public safety issue. public internet, reliable broadband. Let's start with reliable broadband. Let's start with getting rid of this monopoly that we have down here, and then let's work towards free public internet. So right there, that would be more affordable. 2, the water rates. That's been something that's on everybody's mind. My water bill is more expensive, like many homes, more expensive than my heating bill. And the reason is that the infrastructure costs are built into the rate. And so therefore, year-round residents are paying proportionately more than our seasonal and summer residents. So that needs to be dealt with. So right there, if you start to look at the cost of living, it's not just the price of a home, but those monthly utility costs that are killing some of us. I mean, I'm a business owner, I'm a single mom. That's, I hear those concerns loud and clear.
I wanted to go back to Ryan's question, though, and that's the question. It touches on affordable housing. Mm-hmm. Is there enough affordable housing in the community? And if not, what can the council do in order to create more? So
when you're talking about affordable housing, not low-income housing.
No, affordable housing there's a pretty strict definition that you get from all these organizations. It's housing in which people are spending less than 30% of their income on rent or on the mortgage, and that's what I believe is the definition of affordable housing. Often it may be considered low-income housing, may be considered moderate, but there is a threshold. I forget exactly what it is written in the state, and there is also a requirement from the state that 10% of every community's housing stock has to be designated as affordable. There are very few communities that reach that. Newport is one of them.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of affordable housing, I just wanted to clarify because there is a lot of confusion between low and affordable. Affordable housing, a great opportunity for that is in the North End redevelopment. We could put in affordable housing often when we look at higher density, multifamilies. That's a beautiful residential area, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for keep my open space, to have recreational activities for children, also do some careful economic development and put in some affordable housing.
Olga, I'm not sure, it's funny. I've talked to some candidates and they're listicles and they're list people, and some people aren't list people. So I'm always cautious when I ask this question and then there's people that have 100 priorities and there's people that have 1 priority. If elected, what are your top priorities?
Right. So that's hard because I have a lot of passion, but I like to look at it as what I could accomplish. People run for office the first time and they're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But I've seen those candidates come and go. What I could accomplish: clean streets, clean parks. In Mansonomi Park, sometimes those kids are literally running through trash. I've already talked to the parks department. We've already, as I said, impacted change just through bringing attention to it. I used to call anonymously and ask for more receptacles. There's ways to clean up our parks, clean streets. That benefits our businesses. That benefits our residents. Nobody likes to see. I know. Oh, hi. Sorry, I got my.
Hi.
My FedEx delivery. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm in my. I'm so passionate. What am I? So clean streets, clean parks is obviously a priority. Parking. I'd love to resolve parking. I advocate for let's get people for free in Gateway. Let's just provide free parking, get them there, have a walking campaign to get people on the streets. I think that could go a long way. I think people want to walk in Newport. We think, oh, it's not that expensive there. People don't park there, but they would. If you ask people, if you ask tourists, they would. So parking, clean streets. Those are the 2 things I would like to hit the ground running with if elected.
What have you been hearing since you announced your candidacy from people, from voters in Newport?
Right. Very positive. A lot of people already know me. People are, to be candid, people are frustrated. They want change. People don't feel heard. Small businesses in particular don't feel heard. they feel ignored. I think I'm not going to bash the current council, but I do feel that there's been
Go ahead.
No. I mean, this is not about personalities, and that's the distinction. But there's been a lot of divisiveness lately, and that is not going unnoticed. I think that maybe people think that the residents, if they're not there in council meetings, they don't notice, but it isn't going unnoticed. So whether I agree with somebody else, I can always sit down with somebody. I was actually criticized for sitting down with people, having a glass of wine with people who somebody else didn't agree with. And that's what we need to do. We need to sit down and have a beer with people that we don't agree with on a national level and on a local level. There's enough divisiveness. It's a scary world. And the minimum we can do as city councilors is work together for the benefit.
Do you think some of the things you just spoke of is the reason that we have 19 candidates running for 7 seats?
Yeah, I do. I think, yes, of course. I do. I think so. And I think there's a lot of great candidates. And that's exciting for me. I declared and I was, it was like mine, one after another. And that's great because once we get engaged, that's when we impact positive change. So whether it's me up there or somebody else who's going to do the work, roll up their sleeves and do the work, that's great because I have a business to run. I have a kid to raise. So I think absolutely. Yes, people are ready for change.
Olga, I have 2 questions. The first one is, if you had the opportunity to ask the other candidates a question, what would it be? And my second question is, if you lose the election, there are lots of boards and commissions in the city in which people can get on those boards and have a positive impact. Would you do that if you're not successful in the election?
So first question, if I could ask the candidate, well, I probably already have. I'm not very shy if you haven't noticed, but let me think. One question I could ask. I mean, I always think it's interesting. It sounds cliche, but why are you running? What made you run? This isn't an easy job. You're not doing it for the money. So what made you want to run? Because that's what's going to be their driver. That's going to be their passion when they're sitting up there. So that's important to me as if I am going to support other candidates, if I'm going to vote for them, if I'm going to support them as a resident, if I'm going to support them as a fellow councilor. Why do you run? And then the second, what was the second question?
Second question is, if you were unsuccessful in the election, whether you would consider looking at being a member of any board or commission within the city.
Yes, resounding yes. That was my only complaint as when I was a reporter, that I couldn't serve on any boards and commissions. I love to stay involved. So absolutely, of course. Those commissions and those boards, they sometimes are impacting the most change behind the scenes.
Well, with that said, you've covered City Hall for quite a few years and the ins and outs. And, we've been asking this question, and I'll give credit to this question. This question actually came from Councilor McLaughlin, who was our first interview. And, it was about a charter review. The city is required to do it just about every 10 years or so. And what would you like to see it address? Some of the things that have come up have been such as 4-year terms instead of 2-year terms for council members, 7 wards instead of 3, and everybody runs in their own ward. There has been term limits. There has been a powerful mayor, taking the mayor title, getting away, calling it president instead. Anything that you see that would be good for the city of Newport in local government that you would like to see?
Right. Yes. I think that anytime you have a charter review, the best thing that comes out of it, well, there's lots of good things that come out of it, but one of the best things that come out of it is the engagement. You get people engaged. People start thinking about more than just the immediate issues and thinking about where we want to go, where we are as a city. It's kind of a big picture, kind of strategic thinking. So that in itself, of course, we should do that. One thing I've also heard when I walk around, I don't ring doorbells, but I've been hanging door handles, is the mayor. There's a lot of young voters, this surprised me, there's a lot of young voters who are frustrated and actually won't vote because they feel that their vote doesn't count. And as much as I try to educate them that their vote, of course, counts, and the mayor doesn't have any more powers than any other councilor, They don't want to hear it, and they want to see that name changed. So maybe to presidents or to vote for the mayor or whatever that looks like. And so just to get those kids, we have to get those kids engaged, because that's our future. So just for, if I hear that from a bunch of kids that they want to relook at naming the mayor, yes, of course, let's do it. Let's get them in. Let's form a committee. Let's have some conversations.
Would you suggest that be changed to a council president and with the same selection process?
I haven't thought this through too much, but I've heard that thrown out there. I think so. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think there's definitely confusion in this city. I've been talking to my friends from Boston who start belly laughing when I tell them how the office of the mayor works, and it's not Joe Nicholson, the city manager, who runs the city. So I think that there is confusion. So would I explore it and consider it? Of course.
Would you explore having an elective mayor and eliminating the position of town manager or city manager?
Well, ultimately, that would come down to the voters, right? But I would definitely support talking about that. That's definitely something that comes up a lot with people, with residents, in my experience recently.
And here's a tough one, and I know if you haven't already answered this one, I'd be surprised, because I think you did probably 2 or 3 times already. But why are you here? Why do you love Newport, and why do you call it home?
That is tough. Oh, I love Newport. So I love Newport, like everybody else here. Newport, if I didn't love Newport, I wouldn't be here, because it's so difficult to run a business. I could do much better in Providence. But Newport is such a unique place, and we have to be very careful to keep it unique. It has that urban feel, but yet we're by the ocean. We have that amazing history. Some not so great. So part of our history is not so great, but it's still, we take so much pride in Newport history. And so it's important to keep the integrity of Newport. So when we're talking about these important hot topic issues such as hotels, I think that's what it comes down to, that question. That's why it's so difficult. What do we love about Newport? Yes, of course, we want economic development. We want a lot of things. We want a lower tax base, but most importantly, we need to preserve the city the reason that we all live here. That answers your question.
I'm going to ask you this one.
Okay.
Why or how do you feel like you'll make a difference if elected?
Right. I am extremely passionate about Newport, and that's what we need. We need people who love talking about Newport. Unfortunately, we have people on council currently who don't answer their phone calls on important city issues. We don't have people responding to emails. If you don't like your job, it's not an easy job. I know that. I've sat in the council chambers, but you have to love it. You have to have passion no matter what you do, no matter if it's your business, no matter what you do in life. I understand the job that I'm signing up for, and that's what makes me different. I am willing to, if it's a question of like the skate park, I understand the first thing that people are going to say is there's no money. I am prepared to hold fundraisers. Let's raise the money. And that's what a good counselor has to do. They have to roll up their sleeves. It's not just about passing resolutions and chit-chatting, hearing yourself pontificate in the council chambers. It's about rolling up your sleeves, doing the work behind the scenes. And that takes passion, that takes energy, a lot of energy and passion. So.
Well, I will, and hopefully it's okay to do this. I'll probably get called out by somebody. I will tell you that you've had the most passion of all the interviews that we have done. And no, it's refreshing, right? Frank and I have done 16 of these. 15.
I thought it was 34. I wasn't sure.
I'm doing them in my sleep. I asked my wife last night started asking her these questions. But you have an extreme amount of passion, and you've also brought up topics that we haven't heard before. So I will give you credit for that. And I will ask you, did we miss anything? Any issues, topics, things that you want people to know about you? Anything else?
The only thing is, if you want to learn more about me, I am Olga for Council on Facebook. And if you're not on Facebook, if you're not on social media, I am olgaforcouncil.com on the web. And I am extremely responsive. So just call me, text me, email me. I will get right back to you. If you have any questions.
What's your phone number and your email?
401-864-3403 is my mobile, and I am glued to it as a business owner and mom, so feel free. And Olga at olgaforcouncil.com. And so if you forget that, just go onto Facebook, Olga for Council, olgaforcouncil.com, and my contact information is there too. People are also DMing me on Facebook, which is fine. Friend me on Facebook.
Frank, did we forget anything? Anything on your
I don't
end?
think so. I think, again, the whole idea of an election, I believe, is the exchange of ideas. Again, we've had a lot of good ideas out there, and hopefully the winners look at all of this stuff, put it together, and create programs that are very beneficial for the city.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Olga, did we one more time? Did we miss anything?
No, you guys did a great job. Thank you so much.
Right. Excellent. Well, best of
Thank
luck.
you, Olga.
Again, Olga is going to be, she's on the primary ballot. I'm a little confused because so many people are voting early by mail. So if you're voting early or voting by mail or voting on September 8th, Olga is in there for at-large on Newport City Council. There are 12 candidates. You pick up the 4. That narrows it down to 8. The top 8 go to November 3rd. The top 4 from there make it to City Council. Excellent.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right, Olga.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Prosnitz. Another
We
one
have-
down, my friend.
5 o'clock, Derek Rinkin.
Derek
And then
Winkin
tomorrow-
coming up, another at-large candidate coming up in just a short while, and then Kevin Mashad tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. 2 more council candidates to go, and perhaps later at 5 we'll talk about some of the interviews we have coming up later this week as well as next week. So,
Sounds great.
all right, I'll see you in a little bit, buddy.
See you in an hour.
All right. It's like doctors. It's like a doctor's hall. On behalf of Frank Prosnitz and myself, we want to thank Olga for joining us. Again, she is on the September 8th primary. Everybody should be going to vote on September 8th or beforehand if you are registered to vote. And you can find out more about Olga as well as all of the candidates, watch their videos, look at their profiles, and a lot more on whatsupnewp.com. We'll see you at 5.